Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to our regular council session of Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Welcome to our staff and council and those who may be watching online, and welcome to our councilors and staff who are zooming into this meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge that we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We'll move on to the agenda. So 2.1 is approval of the agenda. Everyone would have a copy of that. There are two additions. One is, if you would add 6.8, a request from the Pugwash Baptist Church for assistance for funding for Six Rivers Hope Center Ministries, so 6.8. And 7.2 under information items would be the library report. Okay, to ask for motion to approve the agenda as amended, please. Moved by Councillor Gould, second by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 2.2, approval of the minutes. So the minutes of the May 29, 2024 regular council meeting need to be approved. Someone make the motion. Moved by Councillor Porter, second by Councillor Joseph. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 2.3, business arising. Mr. Harrett's going to review the business arising, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Business arising is at pages 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Council's information package for today's meeting. Begin at page 5 with the business arising from Council on May 29th. Almost all items are complete. A couple of demolition orders that are still pending, one in Spring Hill and 191 McGee, and we're all familiar with that one. The deadline is September 16th, and another for 219 King Street in Parsboro, and that was in progress. But a number of rezonings are all complete. I'm now on to page 6, which is the second page of those items from the May 29th meeting. All items are complete with the exception of the Newville Lake lease, and I understand that Director Cole has that one in process. Stop there and ask her if there are any questions before I go on to the next couple of pages, Your Worship. Any questions or comments for Mr. Harrett regards to his report to this point? Seeing none. Thank you, Your Worship. Next is page 7, and there are a number of items in progress. Formal agreement of purchase and sale on Robertson Avenue. That's the sale to Shaw Living. I know that Shaw Living Retail Limited, and I know that Director Boone is working on that. We've been back and forth quite a bit. The agreement of purchase and sale for a few properties on Junction Road with Crossroads Cycle Sales. I can tell you that the property at 25 Junction Road has closed, and the other were just a couple of details to take care of. Public hearing regarding Lands of Merville Rushton building movers is still in progress, yet to be scheduled. CGSMA dissolution, Director of Finance is working on that. I'm providing her with some details. Sale of surplus property, 12 Clark Street in Spring Hill. That's been around for quite a while. I think we're going to shift gears on that a little bit and probably proceed through a quit claim deed process and a couple of zoning changes at numbers 6 and 7. Page 8 is the business rising to the special council meeting of June 19th, and all items are in progress. Those were rezoning items. Your Worship, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments for Mr. Harrett in regards to his report? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda. So we do not have 3, 4, and 5 strategic priority issues, major organizational items, and organizational policy bylaw items. We don't have any on for today. Sorry, for organizational 5.1. Sounds like it's going to be Mr. Boone Day today. 5.1, second reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw and schedule a rezone PID 251-44031 and 251-43215 Colbeck Road. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to make sure sound is okay. If I get a thumbs up, we're all good.
It's good.
Thank you. So, Your Worship, this is the second reading. So we can go to the next slide, please, Peter. This was presented at the full public hearing. Council's already seen this application through the first reading process. Again, just a reminder, this is second reading, final approval at council's pleasure. This is an agricultural zone being rezoned to commercial recreation. And the real purpose of this is to give the opportunity for the owner and the developer of the property to create fixed roof overnight accommodations. Plans on the screen before you are just an aerial that shows the two properties in relation to the topography. As you can see, the area is quite heavily treed. So although it is zoned agricultural, it was based on overall mapping and soil conditions that set the original zoning at agricultural. So next slide, please. So just a quick overview, some photos on the site. Fairly rural section of the Colbeck Road. The developer has already started a road into the development to allow tree clearing and to start power installation of the power to his project. All of that can happen in advance of the rezoning. And the only thing I would note here, Your Worship, on this photo is that this road entrance will slightly adjust based on DOT or Public Works, Provincial Public Works comments on a safe site distance for the access to this site. So all in the works, all proper approach to the development. Next slide, please. So you can see just these are just the concepts. To the right is the concept of the development. The proposal is to start with 4 chalets, accessing again off the road that is shown in the photos. And there would be access to the water, to the Eel Creek, which runs into River Phillip. That would be part of the overall development proposal. In order for this to take place, the appropriate zone is the commercial recreational zone. This is a large, it's a large section of land when you bring both parcels into the mix. Proposed development, as I said, is 4 chalets to start and a garage. And the purpose of the garage would be as a workshop as they're constructing the sites. Next slide, please. These are just concepts of the chalets. These were presented in more detail at the public hearing along with the other mapping. So just an idea of what the developer is proposing. All of these would be subject to final building permit, of course. Next slide, please. So considerations here, financial implications, there's none specific to the proposal. This will be all driven by the developer off a private access road. Environmental implications, none specific. I will just remind council that same as any development in the rural areas, they would always be subject to, at the building permit stage, to septic design. In this case, it's potential for what they call a cluster system, but that would all be designed by what they call a QP2, which is essentially an engineer for the design. Community engagement, no comments were received during the process from staff on this application. I will note that we did have the public hearing on June 19th as part of the community engagement, and that was duly advertised 2 weeks in advance. And in fact, we utilized both the website and the paper 1 week out. So the recommendation before council is that council approve second reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-01 and Schedule A to rezone PIDs as shown on the screen from agricultural zone to commercial rec. So, Your Worship, if there's any questions, otherwise I will turn it back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. So the recommended motion is that council approve second reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-01 and Schedule A to rezone PID 25144-031 and 25143-215 from agricultural zone to commercial recreation zone. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Telling, second by Councilor Redmond. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 5.2, first reading of the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy. Mr. Boone, Director of Development Planning.
Didn't click enough there. Thank you, Your Worship. This is a little bit more unique than some of the planning applications we've seen in the past. So we can move to the next slide, Peter, please. So this is an amendment to our municipal planning strategy, and it's to align with some requirements that provincial government has through municipal government or municipal affairs through the Municipal Government Act. So Bill 419 brought some various financial measures, but also made some changes to abilities for the municipalities to operate within certain realms within our planning documents. The main changes here, Your Worship, is part of giving notifications in respect to municipalities that would be within 200 meters of the county boundary. In this case, if we were making changes to our municipal planning strategy or doing a rezoning or development agreement, that would say within 200 meters of the property of either the town boundaries of Oxford, Amherst, or the municipality of Colchester, we have to give official notice to those municipalities. So, and then we have to also look to do, when we're doing new planning documents and policies, we would have public participation meetings in advance of bringing applications forward to council. So in this case, we already do this with MPS amendments. It's an extra step in the process, Your Worship, giving notification to adjacent municipalities, but it is a process that other municipalities are adopting under provincial direction. Next slide, please. So this is the accompanying MPS amendment. I won't read it all, Your Worship, but this will be added to our municipal planning strategy. So policy 6.24 will talk about public participation and as in the cases of the requirements to give notice to abutting municipalities. So next slide, please, Peter. So considerations here, it provides more opportunity for the community, especially the abutting municipalities, to provide feedback should they think there's any implications or impacts on their municipality. No environmental impacts, nothing related to the proposal specifically. And by eliminating the required paid advertisements, Your Worship, this also reduces any financial barriers as far as having to get advertisements in, and with the limited papers for advertising or processes, that's going to be quite helpful. One thing I will mention, Your Worship, which had been addressed just slightly in the report and the package they had with more details, is that this proposal will eventually have us look at our policy. So council has a policy on public participation. So we will amend that as part of the process at a later stage, but that would be separate from the municipal planning strategy policy. So recommendation before you, Your Worship, and in order to save time, I will turn that back to you for the recommendation.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy 24-03 to add clause 6-24 and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendments. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Councillor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? There's none, Mr. Boone. I just have one. So do I understand correctly? So if it involves an adjoining, adjacent municipality, we'll have to notify them. Are we waiting for permission from them for input, or is it a staff? Is it dealt with at the staff level, where it doesn't have to go to a council for approval? Or I'm just wondering, is it going to slow the process down even more?
Yeah. So Your Worship, the intent is to ensure that cross jurisdictions or intermunicipal cooperation is in place. And in most cases, it's a notification. It is required. And my understanding is that if we have written submissions or written comments back, they would happen within the time frame of our process. But if we get written submissions or written comments, we will bring them forward as part of the planning report, and we would bring them into any discussions if a municipality decided to provide us information after the public hearing was advertised. So there'd be a number of stages within the process that would give adjoining municipalities, as I mentioned before, towns of Oxford, Amherst, and the municipality of Colchester. CAO might have some more comments on it, but it is a new process, but it's being pushed in relation to all municipalities having to align with these provincial standards.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's simply notification. It's not another process.
Okay,
It notifies them so that they can make comments into our process.
Okay.
And same, it's reciprocal, the same, we have to get the same notice for them. So.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from councilors for Mr. Boone? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 5.3, first reading of the bylaw to amend land use bylaw into Schedule A to rezone PID 25184-144, 2019 Highway 307. Mr. Boone.
We just have to advance. There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. Just going to start with this one. It's an amendment that has been necessitated by the desire by the owner of this property to divide the existing dwelling into a duplex. So it's a large family that shares the residence. They're looking at creating individual units, so creating a duplex. Unfortunately, creating the duplex is not a permitted use within the agricultural zone. This is a property that's on the edge of agricultural land, but the property itself, Your Worship, the PID, is not specifically utilized for agricultural purposes. So the plan is to convert the dwelling to the duplex as mentioned, and to change the zoning from agricultural to the country residential, which does permit the duplex, as well as a number of other uses, but specifically for their requirements and what they're looking to bring forward. Next slide, please, Peter. So this is just some sketches of what they'd like to do. It's just for information, Your Worship. Detailed building permit will be applied for. So this is just getting an idea of how they're going to divide the building. The way it's laid out, it's fairly easy to do this, but just has to be done to code to ensure that the proper fire and smoke separations are in place and that all the plumbing, et cetera, is done to code. As you can see on the zoning map, it is agricultural lands all around this. But as I've mentioned in other applications similar to this before, Your Worship, this is a case of a smaller lot that would probably be more appropriately zoned country residential if we were doing more detailed review of the zoning that does have the agricultural designation. So as mentioned before, that's something we're going to look at in greater detail in the plan review, just as information. Next slide, please. So under considerations, there's none specific to the proposal. Environmental implications, there's already the same number of folks living in this premises. They may have to do a quick review of their septic system as part of the building permit stage. That will be determined at that stage. So any community engagement here is upon first reading, and if council endorse a public hearing, will be held at a later date. Notification of any of the public hearings now, as I mentioned earlier, in the other application, 2 weeks prior to hearing, we can now advertise on the Cumberland County website to meet the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. So, Your Worship, if there's any questions, I'll take them, but otherwise the recommendation is before you, and we can take it from there.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend land use bylaw 2404 in Schedule A to rezone PID 251-84144 from agricultural zone to county residential zone and to schedule public hearing for the proposed amendment. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor O'Telling, second by Councilor Redmond. Questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. According to mine, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 5.4, first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw in Schedule A to rezone PID 255-10272 and 2533-1612, 496 Fox Point Road, Parsboro. Mr. Boone.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. This is an opportunity to align the zoning on an existing property, the Fox Point Inn, which is a well-known and successfully operated business in the area. There is an opportunity for the owner to look at some expansion and to add some unique features to the property. So next slide, please, Peter. So the plans for development is 8 cottage-style mini homes or short-term rentals. We're looking at some stuff, some unique stuff here, Your Worship, in the fact that long-term this might be going through a condominium type approach. There is a separate process for that that's not related to the zoning, but it's important to know. Designed for aging population, so these are going to be one level, look to be accessible. Pedestrian footpaths, community garden, and this is in addition to what the Fox Point Inn already offers in the area. So this property again is another example of agricultural zone based on soils conditions and kind of surrounding uses in the area. But this property specifically has been operated as an inn for some time, would have existed prior to the to some of the zoning changes that we have. So this is a case of making the zone fit the existing use and the proposed use. So that's why we're looking at 2 PIDs here, Your Worship. One has the existing inn, and the other is the holds the existing barn as well as the future development of the chalets or the cottage-style small homes. So country commercial is the zone in which we're looking to go towards, and hotel or inn expansion is the proposed use. Next slide, Peter, please. So a couple of things here. One is just an insert of the zoning map. Once again, you can see that the area is highly been designated and zoned as agricultural. So this is to get things in alignment with with the uses and what the proposed uses are. The character of this neighborhood certainly leads it to, as you can see the photos we have, your worship, to the right. This is an area that has been developed, for the purpose of the inn, and very much a residential country kind of feel to it. So I don't think there's anything out of character. Is in per your package that and the report that was provided in the overall council package. This is in keeping with policy, as well as in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So financial implications, non-specific. Environmental implications, non-specific to this proposal, but as I mentioned before, at the time of development, the owner developer will go through the requirements under building permits to get septic designs. This will probably be another example of potential shared wells, as well as a shared septic system or a cluster system. Again, would all be designed by a QP2 or an engineer for that purpose. Similar to the other first readings, this is if council endorses first reading. So public hearing for the proposed amendments held at a later date. Notifications of the public hearing will be provided 2 weeks in advance, utilizing the municipal website in the new process. So happy to answer any questions, your worship, but the proposed amendment for the bylaws before you.
Thank you. The recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-05 into Schedule A to rezone PID 25510-272 and 2531612 from agricultural zone to county general commercial zone, and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment. Somebody like to make that motion, please. Moved by Councilor Goodwin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. Questions or comments from Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 5.5, first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw in Schedule A to rezone PID 2511-59665 and 28852 Highway 366. A lot of numbers in Linden. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, worship. You're getting the digital version of me today for sure.
Yep.
So again, another first reading. This would be another example of the owner of the property looking to do something a little different than the zone permits. Next slide, Peter, please. So this is an opportunity for the owner to look to subdivide the lot. You can see to the left, the lot's outlined in red. This is what they're proposing to do as far as creating 2 lots. There's a preliminary plan developed by the surveyor. You can see in the middle section, your worship, once again, you see this is agricultural zone. And it's one of those examples, without being repetitive, where the soil conditions and a lot of this area has been heavily used for agricultural purposes over the years. But this property's been more utilized for recreational purposes, and as you can see, is not really set up for agricultural use anymore. Plus, it's a very small lot. So all of those things lead it to being more appropriately rezoned to country residential. The advantage of country residential, your worship, it allows smaller lot sizes, where an agricultural zone, even for a single unit dwelling, the lot sizes are much larger. So in this case, it would be allowing this lot to be divided into 2 sections. Next slide, Peter, please. So as you can see, and from the previous slide, your worship, as well, this is an area that's, as we all know, in the Linden area and generally along the North Shore, heavily recreational uses, a lot of summer homes, cottage homes, year-round homes as well. But as you can see on this road in some of these pictures from the site, certainly not a agricultural section along this highway. So again, we're feeling this is an appropriate request by the owners for the rezoning. Certainly in line with policies, nothing steps outside of our municipal planning strategy policies, and all of the review of the policies are in your package. Next slide, please. So no specific financial implications to this, your worship. There would be certainly value in having 2 lots created and allowing an opportunity for the construction of 2 separate dwellings, whether they're seasonal or non-seasonal. Environmental implications. So this proposed future subdivision meets the requirements of subdivision pending the rezoning, allowing the smaller lots, and pending approval from the Department of Environment for 2 newly created lots at that size. Soil assessment has been conducted. Based on the results, subdivision will receive confirmation, and the licensed surveyor went through that process as they're putting the initial plan together, Your Worship. So once again, community engagement on this upon approval of first reading. So public hearing for the proposed amendment would be held at a later date. Notifications will follow the new process, which allows us to use the municipal website for such purposes. And Your Worship, I should have mentioned earlier, when we do put it on the municipal website, our communications officer, Daryl, also will put these on Facebook and remind folks as these things are coming forward. So we're certainly trying to make sure we put lots of notice out in the process. So happy to answer questions on this one as well, Your Worship. And the proposed recommendation and amendments is before you.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend land use bylaw 24-06 and Schedule A to rezone PID 25115965 from agricultural zone to country residential zone and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy, seconded by Councilor O'Telling. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. 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 Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Your Worship.
5.6. 5.6 is first reading of Omnibus Bill Repeal 2024 bylaw. Just want to remind council that I know there's been some calls and concerns about this agenda item. Lots of questions, I guess, but just to remind council, this is just for first reading only. There's lots of items here that council probably wants to read and digest and understand and have questions of, but this is only for first reading only. Certainly lots of opportunity over the next while through the process to be able to dig deeper into these and have questions about specific parts of this bylaw change, but just want to remind council, it's not a decision made today, just to move the process forward. Mr. McCracken, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, and I appreciate that comment. This is really just to get the bylaw before you and start the process. There's going to be lots of opportunity between now and second reading to request any bylaws that you want to take a look at. Certainly you can request those from me and I'll share those with council as a whole. And I didn't include them all in your package just for sheer volume, but certainly if there's any that pique your interest, I know some of you have some questions, so that's great. So since the dissolution of the former towns of Parrsboro and Spring Hill, as you know, the municipality inherited the bylaws and policies of the former towns, and in 2022, council approved a comprehensive organizational review called Clear the Deck, and part of that was further examination of the bylaws and policies of the municipality as well as the former towns of Parrsboro and Spring Hill. The authors of the report, Cox and Palmer, identified many bylaws and policies that should be repealed, and they're listed in that report. Also listed in Clear the Deck were numerous bylaws and policies that should be further examined, and council agreed to support a more in-depth policy and bylaw review, and we hired Stantec Consulting to provide that service. In consultation and engagement management, they conducted the review with several objectives in mind. The first was to recommend bylaws and policies to repeal. So tonight's ominous bylaw, repeal bylaw is really, focused on bylaws. So policies and bylaws are dealt with a bit differently. So just to inform you of that. So the first is to, consider those for repeal. The second objective really is to retain essential policies, identify those we want to keep and have validity and we may want to amend. And then finally, identify gaps where we may want to create new policies. So the report called the Municipal Bylaw and Policy Review, Consolidation and Gap Analysis is in your package. What's not in your package is every bylaw and policy, as I mentioned, that's been reviewed. Also, there, we can provide copies and happy to provide any answers that we can to as we go through the process. This is going to be a multi-step process to get, all these policies repealed, changed, and introduce new policies. Also note that some bylaws and policies cannot be found. And so, I know Councillor Hoteling had asked the question, how do we know they exist if they weren't found? Simply through lists that were identified, but the actual policy and bylaw in some cases could not be located. So we have a record of them, but that's about it. The ones not able to be located are not being operationalized in any, way otherwise. So we don't have a copy of them, and if we needed them, we would simply, I propose, write new ones. So this is going to be a multi-step process, as mentioned. The first phase is to repeal the bylaws and policies we no longer require. The second is amending, and the third is introducing new policies as identified by Stantec. This will allow us to move forward with a confidence that we have a set of bylaws that are current and relevant. Tonight's first reading for the Omnibus Repeal Bylaw 2024 is to repeal a series of existing bylaws as is a first step. The purpose of the bylaws is to repeal bylaws from the former towns and one from the Municipality of Cumberland. Municipalities repealed numerous bylaws in both towns before this review, and they are listed in Appendix A of the package. In your package is also the Omnibus Repeal Bylaw, which includes bylaws being considered for repeal at this time, the aforementioned Appendix A, as well as Appendix B, which are the bylaws being recommended for repeal. Also in your package, as mentioned, is Stantec's Bylaw and Policy Review Report, and there's a recommended motion in your package, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the omnibus bill. Repeal.
Bylaws, Mr. Speaker.
Repeal bylaw.
Thank you.
Some old habits die hard. Bylaw 2407. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy, second by Councillor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. McCracken? And I'm not going to repeat that. Seeing none, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
5.7, illegal dumping policy. Mr. Cole, Director of Protective Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, the recommended motion before Council is that Council approve the draft illegal dumping policy 2403. As we reviewed this policy at the COW meeting last week, the intent of the policy is to clarify the position of the municipality in relation to the solid waste bylaw, as well as the Part 15 of the Municipal Government Act, the dangerous or unsightly provisions of the Municipal Government Act. So the policy sets out the procedures for investigating illegal dump sites, the duties and responsibilities of bylaw enforcement officers, and the obligations of landowners and illegal dumpers.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve the draft illegal dumping policy 24-03. Someone like to make that motion, please. Moved by Councillor Porter, seconded by Councillor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. Cole in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. 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 Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Number 6, business issues. 6.1, award of the RFP for transfer station roll-off dumpsters. Mr. Walcrest, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a result of the changes to the construction demolition debris regulations imposed by Nova Scotia Environment, we've issued a request for proposal, for supply of roll-off dumpsters at their 3 C&D transfer stations. These dumpsters will allow us to be compliant with the new regulations and are issued approval to operate for these facilities. 2 proposals were received for this competition. Both were compliant. The highest scoring proposal was Miller Waste Systems. Details in your package, but staff are recommending award of the roll-off dumpster proposal. Your worship, if there's any questions from council, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that the recommendation to award RFP MCC 2413 supply and maintenance of roll-off dumpsters, Advocate, Pugwash, and River Hibbert transfer stations to Miller Waste Systems be approved. So I'll make the motion, moved by Councilor Telling, seconded by Councilor Redmond. Any questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Worship. Just one, I see we still got the 3-year cost here, but I thought when we talked about it before, it was a 2-year deal and with an option of a 3rd year, is it?
Mr. Walkrest, please.
Yes, that's correct. It's a 2-year with a possible extension to a 3rd, but we did get pricing for all 3 years.
Okay, so there's no commitment on the 3rd year as of yet? No.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Gould?
Yep.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Walkrest in regards to this item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your worship.
Thank you very much.
6.2, tax sale adjournment properties minimum bid. Ms. Hurdle, Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We did go over this last week at COW, so I will just provide a brief reminder. At the tax sale on March 14th, there were 13 properties that had no interest and were adjourned. So we're looking to lower the minimum bid on them, and council is able to do that. The table that's in your package, the first 5 have been at multiple tax sales and have had no interest, so we're proposing 75% of assessed value. The next 2, 213 McGee Street and 2585 Baronsfield Road, both went to the last tax sale at pretty much assessed value and actually a little bit over assessed value. So again, we're recommending 75% of assessed value. And the remaining 6 were significantly above assessed value, so we're recommending lowering it to assessed value. The financial implications, as discussed last week, would be that the finance department would be required to write off about $104,000 in taxes, but about $102,000 have already been included in the valuation allowance. So most of these have already been included in the valuation allowance in one way or another. And that is everything, unless there's questions.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that the request to lower the minimum bid on the 13 adjourned properties from the March 14th, 2024 tax sale to the recommended amounts be approved. Moved by Councilor Joseph, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. Any questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Councilor Redmond.
Just so that it's on the record, could Amy explain how a property gets into a tax sale, please?
Yeah,
Yep,
please.
I can do that.
Thank you.
So when property, when their taxes aren't paid,
For how long?
for after 2 years, we have the option to do it. After 3 years, we are supposed, like, basically we're supposed to. We have been cleaning up a bit of a backlog, so some properties we've been a little behind on, but we're pretty close to caught up now. So basically, at 2 years in arrears, we start the process now.
Councilor Redmond, please.
So how do they keep them, because I know some that have a large amount owing. How do they keep it off of the list? Like, what do they have, what are they doing in order to not have it put on after 2 years and 3 years?
So if they've talked to us and been put on a payment plan and stick to the payment plan, they can be kept off. Other than that, we do have some that they're called issue accounts that we haven't been able to put on yet. There were title search issues where the lawyer is saying you need to do more work around it. So we have quite a few properties that still have that, that we need to dig into, that we're starting the process on. But if they're fairly clean, once they hit that mark, we're title searching them and putting them in, so.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Redmond. Okay, thank you. Just to add that, Amy, I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen properties go through the tax sale, and then we had some issues around title search. Afterwards, they get clear title to actually move them on, so it's more legalities than as opposed to a process within internally here that's holding some of those back.
There could be, yeah.
Could be.
yeah.
You know, look, I think it's fair to say, if I could just speak on that,
Yep.
Your Worship, that we've come a long way in terms of the collection in the last, you know, and I think to be fair, we'd have to go back even 5 or 6 years and say that the collection effort has really improved. But it's not always just title that's an issue. It may be chasing changes that PVSC has made to assessment, or the PIDs that they've changed and how they've attached it to particular accounts that makes them complex and what we call issue accounts that aren't just straightforward. Oh, okay, they owe the tax, they're not gonna pay, we need to move on, we'll go to title search and we'll go forward. So the legislation is there for us, certainly as a guide and certainly as a guide for us to follow. But there are some cases where we don't get it to tax sale within 3 years. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but if that's the case, there are always complicating factors, so. We have 22, how many thousand accounts?
28,000?
Yeah,
plus
28,000 accounts, so there's a lot.
28,000 plus, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could add, we do have a category of survey required. So if they've come back from title search, survey required, some of those accounts only owe about $500. If we're gonna have to pay 3 or 4 or 5 grand for a survey, it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's not high priority yet.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Gilroy.
Not so, a question as a point. The ones that were significantly above the assessed value, just to be clear to the taxpayers that are watching here this evening and whatever, that would be an attempt to recover what was owed, not somebody just arbitrarily deciding what price we were gonna put on a tax sale, correct?
Your Worship.
Please.
Yes, so the starting bid that we always have to go to tax sale on is whatever is outstanding on the account. So a lot of these, they were demolitions, and with the taxes outstanding potentially, and the demolition costs and interest, they were significantly more than what the assessed value is at the time it went to tax sale. And so that's why they were quite a bit more.
Yeah. So, good, thank you very much.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Amy. 6.3, Nova Scotia Public Service Superannuation Plan Presentation. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff is bringing forward a recommendation to change pension providers to the Public Service Superannuation Plan to begin April 1st, 2025. Council's been briefed on the benefits and risks of the transfer by staff over the last year or so, and retained Philip Churchill of Eckler Associates to do a third-party analysis of the benefits and risks. He presented to Council in May at a Committee of the Whole meeting. And also of note, staff have indicated unanimous support for the move. At this point, we feel that Council has the information they need to consider the motion in your package, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that Council approve the change in pension plan providers to the Nova Scotia Public Superannuation Plan. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Redmond, seconded by Councillor Joseph. Questions or comments for Peter in regards to this item? Councillor Redmond.
Am I supposed to? Okay. I just want to add to this while we're talking about pensions, that counselors do not get a pension.
Thank
End
you.
of statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Redmond. Any other questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. 6.4, appointment to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. At a previous meeting, application from Mackenzie Aitken was shared with Council for your consideration to appoint Mackenzie to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And that's the basis of the recommendation in your package this evening.
Thank you, sir. The recommended motion is that the recommendation to appoint Mackenzie Aitken to the Accessibility Advisory Committee be approved. Someone like to make that motion. Moved by Councillor O'Telling, second by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, sir. 6.5, Christie Foundation request. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Worship. This is another item that has been before Council at a committee of the whole meeting. It's a request received from the Christie Foundation for the municipality to receive and disperse money on their behalf to the Heritage Models Association in the sum of $1,000. The rest of the information, as mentioned, as was discussed at a previous meeting, and there's a recommended motion in your package.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that the request to receive up to $1,000 from the Christie Community Foundation and disperse the funds to Heritage Model Association be approved. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Porter, seconded by Councilor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. McCracken in regards to that agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. 6.6, River Phillip Foundation request. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Worship. Similarly to the previous agenda item, a request was received from the Centennial Golf Club for the municipality to receive funds on their behalf from the River Phillip Foundation in the amount of $20,000. The correspondence and information was reviewed at a previous committee of the whole meeting, and there's a recommendation in your package.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that the request by the Centennial Golf Club for the municipality to receive up to $20,000 from the River Phillip Foundation to disperse funds, those funds to the Centennial Golf Club be approved. Would someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Gould. Seconded by Councilor McCormick. Any questions or comments in regards to that agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Just, Mr. McCracken, just before you leave, so 6.8 is yours as well, isn't it?
Yep.
So if the council's okay, we'll do 6.8 while Mr. McCracken's in the seat, if that's okay. So 6.8 in regards to another request for funding, Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a request we received recently from the Pugwash Baptist Church for the municipality to receive money on their behalf to disperse to the Six Rivers Hope Center Ministries. As mentioned, we received correspondence from the church requesting we receive $10,000 on their behalf to be distributed to the Hope Center. The church was recently sold, and the funds are being distributed to community organizations, and the Hope Center being one of those recipients. Because the church cannot donate and receive a charitable donation receipt from the Hope Center, they are requesting the municipality accept the funds and disperse them to the center and provide the church with a charitable donation receipt. These are requests that, as you know, we've entertained and approved in the past. And there's a recommended motion in your package.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that the municipality receive $10,000 from the Pugwash Baptist Church and disperse the funds to the Six Rivers Hope Center Ministries on the church's behalf. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Hotelling, seconded by Councilor Redmond. Questions or comments for Mr. McCracken? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Revert back to 6.7 on the agenda, appointment of development officers and fire inspectors. Mr. Boone, Director of Development Planning. Oh, sorry,
Thank you,
Councilor
Worship.
Hotelling? So, okay, Councilor Hotelling is declaring a conflict of interest. Mr. Boone, please. Sir?
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm back. So these, there's no slides for this presentation, Your Worship. It's in your package. This is an administrative process, but an important one requiring council's endorsement. So as you're aware, Karen Norgren joined us in early February as the municipal planner, and as part of that role oversees subdivision process, and as well in the future will be working on specific development permits. And Samantha Stewart and Corey DeWitt are both now fully qualified building officials. They've been working as at the residential inspector level for a bit, but now as we have got them as fully qualified building officials, we want to move them into the opportunity where they can approve development permits as well. And in addition, starting to move them towards taking on responsibilities and roles in fire inspection. Both Corey and Sam have just recently finished the home study program with the under fire inspection course, as well as attended the seminars that prepared them for the examination. And they were both successfully completed that component of fire inspection training. So, Your Worship, the report is specific about where the authority comes to make these appointments. Other than that, I will be happy to answer any questions. I know Kira is in the gallery today because she's been riding along on the planning applications. And Samantha's doing what she does. She's in the field today, as well as Corey is on vacation. So I would like them to have been present, but it's the work takes priority. So anyway, any questions? Happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council appoint Kira Nordgren as Development Officer and appoint Samantha Stewart and Corey DeWitt as Development Officers and Fire Inspectors for the Municipality of County Cumberland. Someone make that motion, please. Moved by Councilor Joseph, second by Councilor Redmond. Any questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Kira, welcome, Kira. We're glad to have us here today and really appreciate all the work you're doing, and Samantha and Corey as well. Welcome to them as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boone, for bringing that forward.
Thank you,
That brings us
Worship.
down to number 7, information items on our agenda. 7.1, Councilor recognition. 7.1.1, Councilor Gould, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to take a minute, that time of year again, it's hard to believe it rolled around, but it's graduation time in Cumberland County, and we have many graduates, some graduating tonight in Oxford and River Hibbert, and the rest of the high schools in Cumberland County tomorrow evening. So I'd just like to wish them all the best in their future endeavors, and hopefully they enjoy the evening. And this is a special graduating class because I'm graduating with them this year. As I'm retiring, they're starting their endeavors and I'm ending mine. So, but a special group, and I want to say special congrats to the Amherst High School grads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould, for that. Really appreciate it. And again, we congratulate all, you're right, we congratulate all those graduating across this municipality. You got ahead of me because I was going to mention the fact that you're graduating as well, but congratulations to you as well, Councilor Gould, and thank you for the service all those years. Thank you. And thanks for bringing this issue forward. 7.1.2, Councilor Redmond.
I'd just like to take a few minutes to recognize the staff and the board of directors, even though I am one, on the hard work that they have put in since the initiation of the remedy report. It's been a lot of stressful, it has put a lot of stress, extra work, and concern on our staff and board. I would like to recognize each staff member at Sunset for all the dedication and love they give to our residents on a daily basis. I especially would like to mention Julie Hogue and Dean Pounder. And I can't go without saying how much our fellow councilor, Jen Hotelling, has done for the Sunset on her own time and and representing the board. And I thank each and every one of them and hoping that this transition goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Redmond. Absolutely. We've seen that firsthand ourselves working with the board and yourself and Councilor Hotelling as well with your involvement there. Appreciate it. So thank you very much for that. 7.2 on your information items is library reports, including your package. I think Mr. Harret's going to speak to that item.
Just thank you, Worship. Just briefly, the report is has been distributed, and council has it for their information. You know, it's well done. Lots of information regarding the operations of the Cumberland Public Libraries. And just as a follow-up and point of interest, recall that council, along with the councils in Oxford and Amherst, approved supplementary funding for Cumberland Public Libraries a few months ago. Part of that agreement was that the CAOs and the chief librarian would perform and prepare a detailed review of the operations of the library and make recommendations in September. And I can tell you that we've begun that process. And we've had a couple of meetings now, and we intend to meet again at the end of July, the end of August. So we're working our way working our way through it, lots to consider. So hopefully have something for councils to chew on in September. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir. Just before we move to adjournment, I just want to thank everyone being here today. It's a beautiful summer day, hopefully heading into a nice summer. Thank our counselor. I want to especially thank our staff. We went through this agenda probably about an hour, and it's an hour's work that takes hours and hours and days and weeks on staff to get us here. We just have to look at the work that's being done. I hope the public appreciate it. I know we do as a council. I'm sure I'm echoing on behalf of council. Thank you so much for all you do every day for us. We really appreciate it. So with that, I will call for adjournment, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.